Okay, hello everyone and welcome back to World of Tanks Blitz, and today we're going to be doing a garage review of the E-10, which is actually a part of the anniversary, here we go, this anniversary event for the season 4 of their, I don't know, weird battle pass, battle season thing, but it's for the anniversary of World of Tanks Blitz. So there's 3 tanks in this. You've got the E-10, you have got the Death Star, which is a tier 8 weird tank destroyer thing, and then you have the KV Junior, which is this thing, which is basically a KV2 at tier 9, which is yeah, interesting. 240 millimeters penetration. Yeah. But yeah, it's part of this thing. It's the first tank you can get, and actually I think, looking at all of these, I think it's actually probably the best one. The best one compared to all of these. I mean, the Death Star is decent. I mean, it's decently interesting, at least. In terms of the armour, it's not got particularly great armour, but it does have a 105mm gun, which for this tier is actually pretty good at tier 8, and the KV2 is yeah, interesting. But yeah, it's another KV2 for you KV2 enthusiasts. But this is the tier 7 tank, the first one you can get for season 4, and I think it's probably the best one out of all of them. So we're going to get into it here. Yeah, I'm not interested in my rank right now. So 1600 HP, which for tier 7 for a heavy tank, if we were to look at something like the Annihilator, yeah, if we were to look at something like the Annihilator here, 1500. Tankenstein, for example, like I compared it to, has got 1600 HP. Yeah, the mutant alien, 1400. Even the Tiger. The Tiger itself has got 1500. So, yeah, it's got a lot of health for this tier. 1600 is very good for a heavy tank. And it means that you can survive quite a lot, even compared to other tech tree tanks. I mean, the IS-2, for example, this is obviously the premium IS-2, but premium IS-2 has got 1400, so regular IS-2 is also going to have a similar amount. For example, this IS-2 shielded has got 1450. So, yeah, it's got a lot of HP for this tier, which is very good for a heavy tank. Armour-wise as well, 196 frontal turret, 138 side, 107 rear, 163 frontal hull, 102 side, 82 rear. It's very, very well armoured. And if you're thinking that this hull looks very similar to something that you've seen before, well, that's because it does. Here's the E100. It is an E100 hull, basically, and if we look at the E100's actual frontal hull, it's 200, so it's not actually too far off of an actual E100 hull. It is basically just an E100. It's basically a lower tiered E100 with some changes, obviously thinner armor and various other stats. But yeah, this is basically an E100 hull, which has had the side skirt coverings removed. This is what the 100 hull looks like without side skirts and some extra bits added on, if you're ever wondering. But yeah, it's got incredibly strong frontal armour. I mean, even compared to something like the Tankenstein, which itself has got 150 frontal hull, frontal turret rather, 200 frontal hull. I mean, the Tiger, which has been incredibly buffed from its historical setting, has got 178 frontal hull and 89 sides. I mean, even the Tiger P, which has got a very strong frontal hull, is 215 frontal hull, and it's flat. You're looking at nearly 200 on the hull. Yeah, 163, and it's sloped. So you're looking at probably at least 200 millimeters of effective armor on that upper glacis, which is incredibly good. The actual turret as well is sloped as well. This isn't spaced armor, and I believe this mantlet is going to be a weak spot because, well, it's just a massive hole in the front of the turret. But yeah, it's incredibly strong frontal armor. Side armor as well. It is only 100, but you can still kind of side scrape in it. It's not the best idea to do, but you can at least side scrape because there is some modicum of armour there. The biggest problem with this thing frontally, though, is this massive lower glacis. The Annihilator, for example, does have a weaker lower glacis, but it's also a lot shorter. It's just one of those German things, really, which is that, yeah, incredibly large lower glacis, which is a weak spot. Same with Tiger B, same with Tiger 1, same with Tankenstein. Yeah, the Mutant is kind of weird American, but yeah, if you're used to any sort of German tanks, such as the VK4503, or anything like that, then yeah, the lower glacis is obviously the weak spot, and this is pretty big on this tank. So that is something to note. If you can hide that, though, if you can get hull down, for example, yeah, it's incredibly strong frontally. And even the size of the turret isn't too bad. So yeah, armour-wise, very good. Mobility-wise, though, 32 kilometers an hour top speed, 21 average, only an 11 power to weight, and bearing in mind this is with engine boosting. It weighs over 100 tons. Only has a 26 degrees per second turret traverse, 22 degrees per second hull traverse. Yeah, it's really terrible. I mean, if you look at speed, rotation, yeah, pretty poor. Compared to, well, let's go with the Tankenstein again. Compared to Tankenstein has got a higher average, higher power to weight, higher turret traverse, higher hull traverse. And the Tankenstein itself isn't particularly mobile. Tiger P, for example, yeah, again, 26 average speed, 13 power to weight, higher turret, higher hull. Lots of things outclass this thing in terms of mobility. Even the Mutant, I say even the Mutant, what is the Mutant like? 26, 14, 26, 30, yeah. Again, Mutant outclasses it. There is very little at this tier which is going to be slower or worse performing in terms of mobility than the E-10. It definitely is not its strong suit. If you can get around it in sort of like a medium or a light tank, yeah, it's incredibly difficult to catch up with a fast-moving, even a faster-moving heavy tank. I mean, yeah, very little at this tier has got as bad of a performance as this thing. Trying to think, maybe the 4503. I don't know. 12, 24, 29, 32. Yep. 4503 is better. Yeah, mobility is absolutely terrible. And this is fully upgraded as well. Just remember that. And this is with the top engine, top tracks, top turret, top gun. Yeah, it is very slow. Very poor at manoeuvring. So if you're struggling to try and deal with this thing, just get around it, flank it, go anywhere except for frontally on, because frontal on it's very strong, but trying to anywhere around the sides of it, if you can get around the side, yeah, it's pretty easy meat. But that leaves us with the gun. The gun itself, the top gun, is a 140mm KWK-44L28, which means it is a 140mm gun, and that is the largest gun of any heavy tank at this tier. I say that, is there a Russian thing which has got a 152? Is there a KV2 variant that's at this tier? I wouldn't be surprised if there's a KV2 variant that I do not know about at this tier which has got the 152. But in terms of like actual tech tree tanks, yeah, I don't think there's anything at this tier which has got a bigger gun on it. The Americans have got 105s. The Germans obviously have got at most 105, I think. Actually, no, they only have long 88s. The Soviets, obviously, they've got 122s, possibly a 130mm in here somewhere. Nope, they're 122s. Britain, obviously, infantry tanks. They're not going to have anything large enough to compare with this thing. The Juto has got a 105. Okay, China China's got the IS-2, so yeah, there goes that. Frenchies have 90 mils, and European texture tanks have got the 122s probably, or 105s. That's a 105. That's a 122. Yeah, there you go. The M-Mil has got a 105, and that's a tank destroyer. The Progetto has got a 105, and the TVP VTU, it's a medium tank, but yeah, still 105. So yeah, nothing else at this tier in heavy tanks has got a larger gun than this thing. It's an incredibly satisfying gun. It's an incredibly good gun. And this is obviously the upgraded gun, the top gun. But even if you're using the stock gun is still a 130mm gun. Which, again, is what the Tankenstein has. And up until now, the Tankenstein had the largest gun that you could mount on a heavy tank at this tier, which is obviously the 130mm Soviet naval gun, which is incredibly fun to use. Look at that, 460 average damage. But yeah, this thing has got a 140mm gun on it, which is very, very good. I say very, very good. It's very, very satisfying. It's good in some areas, not so good in others. 5-second aim time and 0.36 dispersion is absolutely terrible. And bearing in mind this is with, here you go, enhanced gun lane drive and a refined gun. If I was to take off the refined gun, yeah, we'd be looking at the 0.4s, something like that. And if we were to take off the enhanced gun lane drive, you're looking at a nearly 6-second aim time on this gun, which, again, in comparison to the Tankenstein's gun, which itself is, you know, not great, a 5.2-second aim time and a 0.35 dispersion, and that's with the same equipment loadout. So you're looking at a comparable accuracy to the naval gun on the Tankenstein. However, where this thing differs is that 0.36 accuracy, well, 0.367 accuracy, not particularly great. It's not the worst. Soviet 122s have got worse accuracy. For example, the IS-2 Pravda has, I think, got a 0.35, there you go, nearly 0.36, but it does have a completely worse aim time. And that's with an enhanced gun lane drive. IS-2 1945, for example, yeah, again 0.35, nearly 6-second aim time as well. Yeah, you're looking at a comparable accuracy to a Soviet gun, which, yeah, not particularly great aim time. Could be worse, could be better, could be worse. Reload time of 14 seconds is not particularly too great. Again, looking at Soviet 122s, you're looking at a similar sort of reload time. If we look at Tankenstein, obviously Tankenstein's got a pretty long damn reload time. Yeah, nearly 17.5-second reload time on that thing. But yeah, like anything with a smaller gun, like the Mutant, for example, with a 105, you're looking at a 10-second reload time. So, yeah, the reload time is pretty poor on this thing because it is such a large caliber gun. Yeah, even the Lycan with its 122, 0.37 accuracy, 5.8-second aim time, and yeah, 13.66-second reload. So, yeah, accuracy, aim time, reload time, not the greatest. However, penetration of 170mm is good at this tier. Soviet 122s have got 175mm of penetration. Obviously, the long German 88s will have more. Will have more as well. They have coming up to 200 or even more. I think 203 penetration, I think. But yeah, 170mm of average pen for a heavy tank at this tier on a 140. It's perfectly serviceable. 210 with heat, 75 with HE, all very good damage and pen. Average pen rather. Average damage 400 with AP, 340 with heat, 500 with HE. Pretty standard. You would probably be expecting more, considering the 130 on the Tankenstein does 460 average damage, and at 400 average damage, that's a Soviet 122. So really, you're getting a bit gypped on the damage. You'd be expecting it to be probably about 100 more than it is, which kind of sucks, but I suppose having a lower reload time does make up for it. Yeah, 13.5 second reload time for 400 average damage. That's not bad, really. Not bad. The DPM is coming up to 800. It's sort of hovering just above 1750, which is it's not too bad. 6 degrees of gun depression, 16 degrees of gun elevation. Not the greatest. Not the greatest elevation depression angles. If we're looking at something like the IS-2 here, the IS-2 Pravda, 6, but it has got a positive 25 degrees of gun elevation. And again, yeah, there's that average damage, and there's that average PAM. So it's a comparable gun to a 122. I mean, again, if we look at the Tankenstein again, because I just can't help but talk about it, 6 and 15. So it's got very similar gun depression and elevation angles to the Tankenstein. So again, if you're somebody used to driving a Tankenstein, you'll find this tank very much at home in terms of how the gun handles and how the gun elevation and depression angles work. I mean, the Mutant, it's got a pretty large turret, let's be honest. Yeah, 10 and 20, which is kind of the golden numbers. But yeah, it's got not particularly great elevation depression angles. You can make them work so long as you're not trying to ridgeline fight in it, because yeah, that's not really going to work with that opening. But yeah, it's not a bad tank. That's really what I'm trying to say. The gun itself is pretty decent. A bit all over the place in terms of some things, but again, comparable to Soviet 122s. So if you're used to a 122 gun, you'll find this pretty much the same sort of thing. Or any sort of large gun at this tier, you'll find it pretty similar. Mobility-wise, it's not bad. I say that, it's pretty bad. Ignore what I just said there. Yeah, mobility-wise, pretty terrible. Armour-wise, though, incredibly good. So that's really what you're getting here. You're really going for this tank for the armour and for the gun. Mobility, terrible. So if you're wanting a faster, more mobile heavy tank, you have something like a Tiger, really. Tiger, or even the ISs. The ISs aren't actually too bad in mobility-wise, from my experience though. But armour-wise though, yeah, incredibly strong frontal, except for that lower glacis, and you know, the gun mantlet. But otherwise, yeah, incredibly strong frontal armour profile. You can kind of side scrape. Side armour, not the greatest, but still pretty good for this tier. Mobility, absolutely terrible, and the gun itself is satisfying, even if it is a bit all over the place. However, if you have the chance to get this thing through the anniversary, whether you spend gold to get it, or whether you somehow manage to get enough screens to unlock it and all of the upgrades, then go for it. Definitely. Definitely go for it. It's a very fun tank. It's a very, very satisfying tank. If you like heavy tanks, then you'll find this very fun to play. I definitely did. Yeah, it's incredibly fun to play. And yeah, it's just a decent heavy tank with absolutely no mobility. And yeah, that's kind of what to say on this. So yeah, I will thank you all for watching, and goodbye.